Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and my next guest is probably your favorite podcaster. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He has great taste in sweaters, and he just wrote and starred in a brand new Hallmark Christmas movie. Deck the Walls is premiering the day after Thanksgiving. Hi, Danny Pellegrino.
Hi, Jess. I'm so happy to be here. You know, you're what I was going to say favorite interviewer, and I think you might be my favorite interviewer. I love when you have someone on or a topic that I'm interested in. Of course, you know how much I loved your Fire Island podcast. I just think you're so great at what you do. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And I just gave you a sneak peek right before we hit record. I told you what my follow-up, how I am peek behind the curtain. I am deep in production on a new docu-podcast series, and Danny, just give
Do the listeners know what you're?
No.
Okay.
But you were very excited and titillated at the.
I'm very excited. Can I say what it is?
No.
Am I allowed? Okay. No, I think it'll be really good. I mean, yeah, you told me about it and I lit up. I think you probably saw it. I think you just do really excellent research, and so I'm excited for whatever you put out. Truly, and I'm not just bullshitting you. And we love all the interviewers, all the podcasters, and stuff like that. But I just really do think you always come into every interview being so prepared. And
thank you so much. That means the world to me. Come from you, and I whatever. I respect you. Blah blah. Okay, we're not going to sit here and lick each other's assholes. Yeah,
okay.
let's get into this. All right.
All right, Jess.
All right. So we're going to get into the Hallmark movie in a bit. I want to start at the very beginning, which, why do all roads lead back to Bethany? Like, this is going to be for the rest of our lives.
No, for sure. We're never escaping her.
No.
I had a moment the other day where she posted this TikTok about how bad the new RHONY is, and
this is what I want to say to you.
Is this what you were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just feel like all roads come back to her, and eventually, like, there's always, what's that, broken clock is right twice a day or something like that. Yes. I always feel like that with her, where it's like, just when she loses me, she'll say or do something where I'm like, okay, she's right.
Her exact statement was, quote, "2 different gay men have called me today." Why does the fact that they're gay? She could just say 2 different people, but right. No. Right. 2 different gay men have called me today to say The Real Housewives of New York is unwatchable. And then she went on to say, basically, that they have to bring back the old cast. Now,
after throwing them all under the bus for like a whole year.
And trying to sue the network because of when she went. Fine.
Like trying to get everybody at the network. She basically trying to get the network shut down. And what weren't there allegations about all the misuse behind the scenes or stuff happening behind the scenes and all that stuff? And essentially really trying to get the franchise canceled. And then to now come out and say like, oh, they need to bring those old gals back. It's like, what? You just spent a whole year trying to get the whole network shut down.
But here's the thing. Why does everybody have amnesia? By the end, everybody hated that cast. Dorinda, people forget, by the end, Dorinda had been fired. People were sick of Ramona. They're like, I can't watch Ramona. And everybody absolutely hated that final season with Leah McSweeney and Ebony Williams. What is it that people want?
Well, first of all, I just like to say that I never tired of Dorinda. Certainly she crossed the line multiple times, and she was filled with a rage of a fiery son those past couple of years that she was on it. But I related to that rage. And I always go back and watch her final seasons. And I'm like, I get the rage. I understand it. And let her be rageful sometimes.
Well, she was insane to Tinsley. That was not.
It was bad. She definitely, I'm not saying she did not cross any lines, but I do at least appreciate that the old gals would cross lines and give us good entertainment. Like they weren't afraid to necessarily become the villain one week or a whole season or whatever. And so I totally agree with you. That last season of RHONY was really bad.
Do you think they would do another girls trip? Like, is Girls Trip dead? Like, what's your prediction?
I kind of feel like it is, just because we're not seeing that there's going to be that whole season that's buried. And I feel like it's too much of a PR nightmare for them to come out with another one and then have to talk about that other one or something. So I know they're also doing that dating show, which of course has gotten all the press from the situation with Joel and Shannon, which seems like a similar format of like mixing talent. And so I think they'll find ways to mix talent for Peacock or Bravo, but I don't know if it's Girls Trip is in the cards. But I don't know, with RHONY, I really could see them folding in Luann, Dorinda maybe to next season because
Mm.
I don't know what the path forward is for the new iteration. I don't know if adding people is going to bring in new viewers because, and even taking out my feelings from it, this is just kind of what I see from analyzing behind the scenes of these shows for so
Yeah.
long. I think they will bring in familiar faces because largely creatively, audience wise, I don't think it's working, the new RHONY.
So I've noticed like you've tweeted a few things about the new RHONY, and then I noticed you delete those tweets.
Yeah, I always delete my tweets because I feel like they're exclusives. And whenever I notice it starting to get like, people are like, you're wrong, or, yelling back at me, I'm like, I don't really feel like dealing with this. So I gave my thought and now I'm deleting it before I have to, I don't want to log in here every day or whenever I log into Twitter or wherever and have to see all these people just yelling at me. So it's like, yeah, I put it up for an hour and then I delete it.
But I love that you do put your, well, I'm curious, like, does Bravo, because like you are a repeat guest on Watch What Happens Live, some may say that you're the heir to the Watch What Happens Live throne.
No.
Well, I mean, who knows? We don't know. You could be. You're among the top 2 people I can think of who could
that's
potentially
very sweet of you. Thank you.
Do it. Do they just not give a shit because everyone's giving their opinion anyhow?
Well, I always get the impression that that's kind of like what the network is built on is having bold personalities and stuff like that. So I love these shows and I want them to be the best they can. So if I'm watching an episode or a season or something and it's very clear how bad it is, I feel like let's say it because these shows go on a roller coaster. I know it's going to be a good season the following season. Orange County has come from the depths of hell and now they're good again. Or, you could say that about any of the franchises. Most of them have a bad season or two. So I hope that, if I'm saying something kind of critiquing any of these shows, hopefully the Bravo people know it's because I love them so much and I want them to be good. And it's not really coming from let's cancel this whole network place. It's just like, no, make my shows the best they could be because I love them so much. I want them to be good.
I mean, all they need to do, what's missing is a chaos agent. I think the best way, like my plan to revive RHONY, and I've been saying this for years, is Lindsay Hubbard needs to graduate out of Summer House. And I think she may naturally now that I can't imagine her doing another season of Summer House after giving birth. I think that is the perfect place for her to land. In fact, I was at a taping of Watch What Happens Live, Jenna Lyons, the first season. Jenna Lyons was a guest and I was in the audience and Andy takes questions. And this is what I asked him. At the start, he said, would you ever consider Lindsay Hubbard for RHONY? And he said, it seems like she's ready. This was during the Carl breakup.
Ira Madison has a great Substack and he just, I think it was yesterday's or whatever, he was talking about where does the new RHONY go? And he suggested us the same thing. I think Lindsay and he suggested Paige moving over because they have a history together and they feel very New York. And I thought it was so smart. And also it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier is like, I don't think bringing in new people will work to help the show. Like, I think they have to bring in familiar faces somehow. And I think that it's a perfect solution of like bringing in people that already watch the network will follow over to that. If it's Lindsay and Paige or somebody else that we are already familiar with from another show, I think that works perfectly. And it does make most sense. Just to go back, because I thought of this while you were talking to about in terms of like the network, I also think they know when a show's not working.
Andy himself made a joke on the radio about RHONY airing during the election.
If any of us are thinking they all think it's a successful reboot, you're delusional. Like I think it's like they all know. And just because they put marketing money behind something doesn't necessarily mean they think it's good.
So last thing on the RHONY tip, this has to do with The Simple Life and Countess Luann. So I recently interviewed Countess Luann and I know that you're part of the Simple Life thing that's happening on Peacock.
I think I'm allowed to say it's like a three episode special, but I wish I could say more. I don't know. I think I'm kind of sworn to secrecy until they release a trailer and some more information.
You know what, Luann? I interviewed Luann recently, and I was like,
"What a time that always is."
We did it in my apartment, so she was here for a long time. Like we were.
Did she stick around after and just like?
Oh, before it was a lot. Yeah. Like before, she sent her assistant out, who I'm friends with, to get like drinks, like she needed like specific beverages. I'm like, oh, okay, like there's a CVS right in the corner, like, so I was like entertaining. It was a full production, and in the interview, I was like, what's going on with Crappy Lake? I'm like, is there going to be another season? And she sort of intimated that.
I know she told me that too. I think I know what you're going to say. Sorry, I interrupted.
She sort of.
That it was Paris and Nicole that ruined it or something?
Yeah. And I'm like, that's hilarious that's your party line.
I know she said something. I interviewed her sort of recently too. And she had said that like after I don't think she knew or I didn't say anything that I had worked on that. I was like, no, I don't think that's what happened.
She was like, yeah, they stole the idea from us. I'm like, no, your producers stole it from them 20 years ago. Like, what do
Look, I think both you and I know that there might be oftentimes things she says in interviews that are loosely based on a true story.
Remember when loosely based on, remember when she said to you in an interview, oh, I love the Pellegrinos.
Oh my God. Ben from Watch What Happens probably remembers this, but the very first time I met Luann was at like her Countess and Friends show. Ben and I like went up and took a picture with her afterwards. And she was telling me about like the Pellegrino family and the Suez Canal. And like she had this, and then she told me again on a podcast once, like she always tells me and I'm not related to any of the people she's speaking about in the Pellegrino world. You know, there's a lot of Pellegrinos everywhere. But yeah, and Ben, I wonder if Ben remembers that. But I remember thinking it was so funny. And I think I even just like nodded along the first time she said it and was like, yeah, oh yeah, that's us or something like that.
Oh my God, you said that.
Maybe I feel like
told her you were the heir to the Pellegrino.
I think I did. Ben would have to remember that.
That's so funny. Well, in late breaking news, I think it's interesting how Dorinda and Margaret Josephs canceled their tour after getting into a fight about their preferred moderator on Jeff Lewis Live.
Okay, I don't even know this. Tell me. Explain it to me.
Oh my God. They were both on Jeff Lewis Live promoting this tour date. They answer questions from like, at a city winery, basically, just to like dumb it down. And there's a moderator, like usually it's Dave Quinn, and sometimes they've gone on the road. And Jeff was like stoking them like, oh, like who's your preferred moderator? They're like, oh yeah, sometimes it's this guy, sometimes it's Dave Quinn. And he was like, oh, who do you like better? And they kind of like got into a fight about it, like a tiff, like during a commercial break. And she's like, Dorinda said to Margaret, like, don't put words in my mouth. Cut to a day later, the date is canceled.
That's so Housewives.
I know.
That's so I think they're definitely like setting up. I thought I read that they have something in development with Jeff Lewis, but it seems like his serious show keeps appearing on these shows in the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And that's another situation where I'm like, oh, they're definitely like priming us for some sort of comeback with him.
Well, no, it was announced they're doing a flipping out reboot, but I definitely think he provided content for a lot of the Housewives shows.
But I wouldn't even be surprised if they did some sort of like late night, maybe post Watch What Happens Live version of his show or something like that, because it's just appearing on all of these shows and it's becoming a storyline. And a lot of times, if you notice, they'll kind of edit around the name of shows or I feel like they're showing clips of his too.
Remember the whole thing was who's going to be the first male housewife, the first gay male housewife? It's Jeff Lewis.
Isn't it shocking that we have? I know for years it's been rumored, and every season before something, there'll be like this rumor that Lisa Rinna's bringing on the first gay housewife, or Miami's going to have the, it's been decades of years.
Well, thank God we have like women now, like that. Like, thank God, because they were missing the boat on like a lot of drama. I mean, Jenna. We don't have the time to get into the Jenna Lyons.
Lesbian drama.
Yeah, which they need to do a whole show. They need to go and watch The Real L Word, which was a reality version on Showtime, like a spinoff of The L Word, which lasted 3 seasons, and I recommend it to anybody.
I mentioned this on my show. I would prefer if they're not going to bring in anyone that is recognizable to us from the Bravo network. I think that would be a perfect pivot for RHONY, because like, let's see Jenna Lyons' natural friend group and a group of lesbians in New York, I think would be so much more interesting than whatever this sort of weird grouping is now.
Yeah. So the other late breaking news, this just happened yesterday. Okay. This Now and Then reunion. So this was Rosie. So basically it was like to honor Demi Moore, and Rosie, Melanie Griffith, and Rita Wilson got on stage, and like that was like a nice moment. But funnily enough, you have a chapter called Now and Then in your last book. Isn't that so funny?
I love that movie. Yes. And weirdly enough, too, last night I was on TikTok, and Rosie O'Donnell puts these rambles on TikTok. And so they're these really long videos. And I was watching one last night, and in the middle of it, she just sort of casually drops that they're talking about doing another Now and Then.
Smart.
And she's like, you know, we did Now and Then Before, and we're this age now, and maybe we should do another one. But she said it in a way that wasn't sort of just playfully teasing. It felt like, oh no, these are serious discussions about it, which would be fantastic. I would love it.
Remember when you ate those poison Tastykakes?
Yes, unfortunately.
Can we talk about that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so
Which God bless the Tastykakes people, because no shade to them. I had just ordered some cupcakes because I was doing, sometimes I'll do like little taste tests or whatever. And I was doing a taste test of those cupcakes, those Hostess ones with like the swirly thing on top. And there's like Hostess, and what's the other one? Little Debbie.
Yes.
And I was trying to see which one. And then I found some others, and people were like, you got to try Tastykakes. Like they're,
because isn't that what Rosie used to promote on her show?
I think she did Ding Dongs.
I feel like Tasty.
But maybe she also love Tasty. I don't remember the Tasty Cakes.
I thought you were doing it specifically because of the Rosie connection.
No, just.
No, I didn't just bring this up out of nowhere. I drew the line from Rosie to Tasty Cake. That was a direct line in my head.
She was obsessed with Ding Dongs. I do remember that, and maybe Tasty Cakes was in it, but she had her audience would get Ding Dongs because she like was obsessed, and sometimes they'd like surprise her with a plate of Ding Dongs or something. So I do remember that. But Tastykakes, yeah. So I got them, but I ordered them off the website that you probably shouldn't order food off of, and then I did the tasting live on my Instagram, and they tasted very like both dry and wet. Like I don't know how else to explain it. It was dry and wet, and then it was like really not tasting right. And then I look at the thing, and they expired like a decade earlier. And then I got an email that was like a recall email about it. There was also like mesh wiring. This all happened, and like I had got it sort of like went viral in a weird way. Like I'd never gotten so many messages because I'm posting these like as it's going. I'm posting a live taste test. I'm getting so many messages, and then literally like 2 weeks go by. So this whole thing happened, went viral, whatever. And then 2 weeks go by, and I get an email being like, "Oh yeah, there was like mesh wiring in those, and they're recalled or something." Oh my God. Not only were they like so expired, but I don't. So just don't order food, order food directly from the source, because I'm sure they're fantastic cupcakes, but you never know with some of those resellers or big box places. You just don't know when they're sitting around in a warehouse. And
those are all saved on your Instagram stories. You can relive the journey.
I have the Tastykakes. Yeah. You could see the live. It was just supposed to be a taste test, and it progresses, and I've kept it up on the highlights.
Oh, it's a 10-part docuseries.
It's a long series. That's your next podcast series.
When I complete the one I'm on, I'm actually going to like really expand to do a full interview series with you and the makers of the
I don't know if you're like this though, but I find myself attracted to videos on the internet where they're doing taste tests. Like I'm always fascinated by like a ranking of M&Ms or like a ranking, like I want to know what's the best. I did a Pop-Tart one once, and it was like, I want to rank the Pop-Tarts. Like I want to get every one up. There's 300 flavors of Pop-Tarts. Like what are the top 5?
What should Rosie do next?
I was disappointed she ended her podcast. She had a podcast for a short while that I thought was great, and it just sort of ended. It was like a year deal or something. I don't know though. I don't know. I'll always follow her no matter where it is. I find myself attracted to whatever project she's kind of doing, but I don't know. What do you think?
Stand up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's been doing like little pop-up shows at small clubs around like the LA area, and I'm assuming that's her like trying out like early bits of material. Like I think that would be awesome. Put together like a special, because that's something we haven't had in a really long time from her. I remember she went out on the road like with Cyndi Lauper. I definitely think she could do a tour and then wrap it up with a special. I feel like, do we need more acting from Rose? I mean, okay, maybe the Now and Then, but I feel like this would be a way to like get into what she's thinking about, you know, personally. I would love.
I have a fantasy. Those prestige shows, how sometimes they'll have like what they call a bottle episode that's like not really related to them. I have this dream that somebody gives me a prestige show, like on, an HBO show or something. And I take one whole episode of the season, and it's just a Rosie O'Donnell. It's like a dream sequence or something for the main characters, and the whole episode is the Rosie O'Donnell talk show, and it just plays as like a 2024 or 5 version of her talk show. and maybe we CGI it to make it look, but I don't know. I just imagine that's my dream of dreams is like if anyone were to ever give me a prestige show, like there's one whole episode that's just a whole episode of the Rosie O'Donnell show and somehow connect very loosely. It's a dream sequence or someone's
Like the
tripping or something like
character.
that.
So suppose it's like Severance or like something. Those characters are guests on the show, and it like somehow like drama happens backstage. Like it becomes.
I would love to see maybe some drama backstage or something, but like to otherwise just play it like it's a 2025 episode of a talk show. Like it never ended. And even the guests would be like current celebrity guests or something. Either that or guests from like the 90s or something. But the characters from the show, when it would still, you could be able to watch it and it would just play like an episode of the Rosie O'Donnell show. Does that make sense?
Totally. You know what?
That's my dream.
I was thinking about it because I watch every day when she upload, or whoever the they is, they upload old episodes. Of course, the show itself is great and the interviews are great, and that's what everybody really mostly remembers. But for me, I think perhaps what I loved even more were the musical performances.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because the stage was so small, it created an intimacy. It's the opposite of what they do now on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon and what they're doing on Saturday Night Live, where they're creating like a fully blown, like I don't want to watch a giant stadium. It's not even called Giant Stadium anymore. Whatever it's called, MetLife Stadium. I want to like scale it down and be more intimate. Like I was watching clips of like Sheryl Crow and like John Cameron Mitchell performed a number from Hedwig, like on this small stage, and you feel like you're right up with them.
She would often like play drums. I remember there's one Melissa Etheridge was doing Enough of Me, which is one of my favorite songs of hers, and Rosie's just on the drums playing, and yeah, it's fun.
Also, Britney and those NSYNC performances, like them, I think they debuted Bye 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 on her show live or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I love watching the choreography when it's so tight together versus like an enormous like 30-foot stage. Those are like among the best.
And I think they recently took them down from YouTube. Though I'm sure they'll go back up because it's happened before with copyright. They get taken down those episodes from YouTube. But I also really love the monologues, and there's so many things that if you watch them, like you were saying, watch them at night or whenever as she uploads these new episodes, you learn so much about how ahead of her time she was when it came to things like even the way that we treated celebrities like Britney and those young kids as they were coming up. Like she almost always took a maternal tone with them, but then also in her monologues, she would talk about gun control and issues that we're still kind of dealing with now that I believe was so ahead of her time on. And it constantly, I feel like almost every episode she'll say something and I'll be like, oh my God, like you were saying that back then.
A prophet. Remember when she had those, because I was thinking, because I wanted to talk about like deep cut Christmas songs from popular artists. And I was thinking of my favorite because that NSYNC Christmas album,
so good.
It's like maybe their best fucking album. I mean, I love NSYNC, but that stands the test of time. Under My Tree. Yeah. The only
I just interviewed JC Chazé and I was like, tell me about Under the Tree. I love that song. It's like such a sexy R&B song. And
on that album, they record a song called Love's in Our Hearts on Christmas Day, which Rosie then, she took like a handful of Christmas, like modern Christmas songs that were like out that year. And then she just like kind of duets with them and then released that on her own.
Think about how ballsy it is. She also did that with Celine Dion. There's a Celine Dion Christmas song. Is it Don't Save It All for Christmas Day? Or there's one that she does a duet with her on. And these appear on Rosie's holiday album. So she did Rosie Christmas and then another Rosie Christmas. And yes, the idea that anyone would think like, let me hop on this track with Celine Dion, like the greatest voice of all time. And then like, let me add
Rosie's auto-tuned.
I love it.
But I mean, but how great would it actually be? Okay, like a modern twist on that. If she did that with Cher, DJ Play a Christmas Song, that actually would go viral.
For the longest time, one of the only Cher Christmas songs was from another Rosie Christmas. They did Baby Please Come Home, which Cher recently did on her new holiday album with Darlene Love. And also Cher, I don't know if people know this, but Cher did the background vocals for the original Baby Please Come Home for Christmas.
Yes.
So she was in the studio with Darlene Love and Phil Spector doing the background vocals on that. And then she did it on Rosie's Christmas album. They do sort of like a Believe version of it. So it's very auto-tuney and whatever. But for the longest time, that was like the only Cher holiday song. And I love Cher. And it would be like, oh, that's the only thing we got. It was like there was a performance from Sonny and Cher. And then there's like that Rosie thing. And I kind of always loved that. I'm glad she came out with a Christmas album, Cher, last year. But I loved that that was just like her only thing.
I can't wait to crack into that audiobook. Her
memoir. I know. I just started the book last night. I didn't do the audiobook, but I just started it last night.
The other Christmas album that I love so much. So I know you're a huge Mariah fan, as am I.
Yeah. Wait, real quick though, back to that Rosie album, Santa on the Rooftop.
Yes.
If people don't know that one, that to me, that's my favorite of the Rosie Christmas album, Santa on the Rooftop. It's with Trisha Yearwood. It's playful fun. I loved it as a kid and I love it now. Anyway, go ahead.
Justice for Santa on the Rooftop.
Right.
Okay, Mariah. Of course, everyone knows her original Christmas album. There's a deep cut on there called Miss You Most at Christmas Time.
Yeah.
You know that track, right?
Yeah, my favorite. It's so melancholy and sad. It's my favorite one from that album.
Did you ever see Billy Eichner? He randomly covered it. He performed it live on some late night talk show.
Yeah.
And I thought it was unbelievable. I'm like,
it was beautiful. Yeah, it was. I remember that.
I mean, for no reason.
Yeah, I don't know. What was that for? I do remember that. It was like the night show with Jimmy Fallon or something.
It was, I think it was maybe Colbert, whatever. But it was so, like, I don't think he was promoted. I think he was like, this is my dream.
Yeah.
And now I have the power to do this. Yeah.
I know for a while when Mariah was touring her Christmas show, she didn't always do Miss You Most. And I just think it's the most stunning, melancholy, beautiful song. And I love a sad Christmas song. It's very Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Like it's stunning. Yeah.
Everyone should run to that track. Are people aware that she put out a second Christmas album? This was like back in
I certainly am.
In 2010. She put out another Christmas album, Merry Christmas to You. There are two songs on there, Oh Santa and When Christmas Comes should be at the top of everybody's list.
Yeah, that album's really excellent. I mean, it's a fantastic Christmas album. Obviously can't compare it to the first one, but it's so good. I actually they did a ABC taping, an ABC special for that album. And my boyfriend and I went, and it was like before Halloween. She was super pregnant with them babies. So she was like, she had to film it early, I think. And she literally like right up until the due date. Like she was very, very pregnant. And her mom performed with her. Her mom's like an opera singer, and she has a duet with her mom on there where her mom comes in and does some like opera runs. And it was so fascinating for the taping because her mom comes from the world of opera. Her mom has since passed, but her mom came from the world of opera, and we had to keep recording that number because people would clap when her mom would come in, and opera singers, like it threw her off. And so she had to do it a couple times. And so that always stuck out to me. And Mariah had to like come. She's like, my mom, she was very sweet about it, but she had said to the audience, like, my mom, she comes from opera. And so it kind of throws her off. If you don't mind when she comes in, maybe to try not to clap or something.
Have you reflected, or is there any deeper meaning in the fact that last year when The Jolliest Bunch came out, it came out the same week as Britney's book. So you were head to head with Britney. And this year, the top two movies everybody is talking about, obviously Deck the Walls, your Christmas movie.
Oh, yeah, right.
And it's
Me and Wicked.
You're up against Wicked.
Right. I know. Well, yeah, I'm sure we'll both do as well as each other. But yes.
I want to, can I give my pitch for why everyone should watch Deck the Walls?
Did you see it? Did we send
I watched it.
Oh, okay, good.
And I want to tell you my favorite
thing. It was cute, right?
Very cute.
Okay.
You want to know my favorite thing about it? This is why it's better than the Wicked movie, which I have not yet seen.
Oh my God, I love you.
But here's why. You ready? The running time of Deck the Walls is 1 hour and 23 minutes.
Get in and out.
Something the Wicked movie fails to do, which is trim, edit.
It is, what is it, 240? It's
like 240. You could watch Deck the Walls twice.
Twice. And Deck the Walls is so cute. And also, by the way, in Deck the Walls, you get some of me singing. So
you do.
It's not quite the same.
DANNY actually, spoiler alert, guys. I mean, I don't know if Hallmark, I don't know if we're allowed to say this like yet before. No, but DANNY actually flies and sings Defying Gravity at the end of Deck the Walls. I mean, Hallmark is probably going to tell me like to edit this part out, but he literally flies around the Emerald City.
Could you imagine?
No, DANNY's got a harness on. It's crazy. And the flying monkeys, like that's all in this Hallmark movie.
I wish we had the budget for that. I would have loved to have been flying around on a broomstick or something.
I mean, I loved seeing you in Munchkinland.
Thank you.
This all happens.
No, I'm excited about the Wicked movie, but I do also, the press tour has been a lot.
What? Okay. What?
It's been a lot.
What is wrong with them?
Honestly, I found myself sort of like scrolling past anything I see about it now because I was starting to feel, just in general with all of it, I was just feeling like, okay, the you know what really sent me over the edge was the Target commercial, because it kept appearing on, like, I was watching something on the DirecTV app because we don't have regular cable. It's all through like those whatever. And you know how sometimes they play like the same commercials over and over again? It was like they kept playing that Target commercial. I'm like, I can't. God bless. We love Cynthia. I love her. She's so talented, beautiful, all the things. But seeing the Target commercial, I was like, this is taking me out of it. Like, I can't believe that now I'm going to go into seeing the movie, and what's supposed to be the most moving part of the film when she's singing Defying Gravity, go, I can't. All I'm going to be thinking about is her doing that note in the fucking Target commercial now, because I've seen it 300,000 fucking times.
The crying and the hyper emotion, is this just to create viral moments, or are they just theater kids and this is what happens when you get too much power?
I'm sure you've done theater before, theater kids.
Oh, I was in Fiddler on the Roof.
You recognize the behavior.
The behavior.
I recognize the behavior.
This is Tish kid syndrome.
God bless, I get it. Like what it is. But yeah, I just feel like all of the press stuff, I'm like, God, I wanted to see it so bad, and now I don't.
No, I'm probably I think I'm going to go later today, actually, to see it. I'm
going to go over Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to see it. I'm sure I'll love it and it'll be great. But it does seem long. And I think also the idea that we have another year of press, because it's part 1 of part 2. And so it's going to be the same thing next year, which is probably going to be even more. You're upset about the drama of the interviews. Imagine next year when it's like the end of it and they're like, I can't believe this road is over. It's going to be all like.
I know you said, like the beauty of a Hallmark movie is that it is like visual Xanax. Do Hallmark movies work because the conflict is inherently soft?
Yeah. I think the audience wants familiarity. I think they want comfort. I think, you want some stakes. I watch a lot of these movies. I love these movies, the Hallmark Christmas movies. And sometimes you can watch it and say there's zero stakes and you wish there was a little bit more stakes. They want to keep the audience pleased and comforted. And so I think that's what's most important. It's very visually very important that they have every inch of the screen covered in holiday magic. I think that's important.
Wait, that's interesting that they have every inch of the screen like covered. Like, what are some of the other like tricks of the trade that they imbue into Hallmark movies that make that's the staple?
There are all these different outlets for these holiday movies. So now we have Netflix that makes stuff like Hot Frosty, and sometimes those movies will get lumped in with Hallmark, or Lifetime, I think, has maybe 12 movies this year, or so many, 20 movies, whatever it is. Those sometimes get lumped in with Hallmark. And Hallmark, I think, has a very specific brand of the earnestness. I tend to think that they look better on Hallmark Channel. So the decor and everything is a little bit more extravagant than you might see on Lifetime or some of the others. And so I think that's a really important part of Hallmark. There's just a sheen, and they have the formula down. Sometimes I watch something that's on like Up TV or, one of those Lifetime or one of those other ones, and I'm like, it's just missing a little bit of that magic that I think Hallmark has done so perfectly. And so even before working with them, I had always said on my show, and when I talk about these movies, is like, they have the formula down. They know what they're doing. They know that they have that kiss at the end. Some of the other networks are getting a little racier, which is great. And I love them for different things. The Married Gentleman on Netflix with Chad Michael Murray as a stripper, you got something like that. Or there are good innovations on some of these other networks. But I just think Hallmark does the formula perfectly. You get that one kiss at the end. you kind of, everything is wrapped up in a bow. And
I think it does need to be said, because this is so impressive. I think like for anybody who's like, it is my dream to do whatever, if something like feels out of reach, you've been saying for years, I want to write a Hallmark movie. Like, this is my thing. And you wrote the script on spec, which means you were not paid for it. Did you originally go in with like, hey, this is my pitch? And they were like, okay, maybe not right now.
yeah,
Is
I
that
always
sort of how it
wanted to
worked?
do, I wanted to do one. I was able to get a meeting, like when I finally had gotten representation agents and stuff. That was the first thing I said. I was like, I really want to do a Hallmark Christmas movie. Like, can anyone get me a meeting or whatever? And I ended up getting a meeting. I think it was through the agents that got me a meeting, and I came in with some ideas, but basically they were like, no, you've never written a movie that's been produced before. We have in-house writers. They didn't say it like that, but it was basically that of like, oh, thanks, but no thanks. If you have something done, we'd love to read it. And I had written a bunch of scripts. I think people might not know that I've had a lot of stuff in development, or I've sold scripts and stuff, just not gotten produced, unfortunately. And so I have experience writing scripted stuff. Yeah, they had told me that. And so I thought, okay, let me just go write one. Now I have a contact there that I know I can at least get it to. And so I wrote sort of my version of a Hallmark movie. And I wanted to play into all those tropes. That I wanted it to be like a big city girl comes back to her hometown, falls in love with the guy from her. I wanted that. I wanted to feel like a classic. So anyway, yeah, I went and wrote it and I got it to them. Yeah, I had written it on spec, which, if for people who don't know, that means, yeah, you just write the whole movie and then hope to sell it. And there was another production company that was interested, actually, but I wanted it to be Hallmark because of those reasons we talked about earlier, because I just know that Hallmark does them the best. And I wanted it to be with them.
I
Yeah.
love that. And you managed to get, I mean, I know that you had to audition to act in
Yeah.
in the film,
Yeah.
because you don't have like formal acting, credit. And I don't watch a ton of obviously I've seen Hallmark movies, but I'm imagining it's only been in the past decade, if that 5-10 years, that there have been gay characters that are allowed to even have a romantic interest in Hallmark movies, and you have a love interest in the film. Do you know when the year that the first character
Yeah.
that
I
was
think
gay?
it was like, I think like 2 years ago, Jonathan Bennett had the first maybe kiss in
Isn't that
or
crazy?
first love interest, but
Two
that was
years
just like
ago?
a 2 or 3 years ago. Like, it wasn't, yeah, within 5 years. Because even I know that's one of the things I've always been critical about on my podcast about these movies when talking about them, is the lack of representation. And then, yeah, a few years ago, they started having gay characters. And for a while, it even felt like the side characters weren't allowed to be gay. So like
Hmm.
nobody in the thing was. And so, yeah, I was thrilled that Hallmark was totally supportive. I do have a love interest played by Claiborne Elder, who's an out gay actor, and people might know him from The Gilded Age, and he did Company on Broadway with Patti LuPone and
Yes.
stuff. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it was great that they were okay with that, all of that. And
Like it,
it's,
but
but
it
yeah,
makes me think, was Queer as Folk a fluke? Like in the year 2000, there was full on gay sex. Like, I'm curious, like, how did you discover the original Queer as Folk? And also, did you watch the reboot, which was buried on Peacock, never even stood a chance at finding an audience for reasons I can literally list right now, which are all Bravo/Peacock's fault. But yeah, maybe we'll start
yeah.
there. Yeah, like,
Well,
had
it's interesting. So many of those shows that came out during that time got lost. And I think there's been this contraction in the industry that's been frustrating for creatives, and getting anything made is like impossible right now, and has been for a while. But I think there is something to be said about shows like Queer as Folk, or these shows that came out and that just got sort of lost in the shuffle of too much content. And yeah, Queer as Folk was really, really, I was going to say important to me. It was important to me. I remember sneaking into the basement
yeah,
and
I
watching
was just
that.
gonna say, how did you sneak the DVDs?
We all snuck it, right? Like, I think it wasn't even the DVDs. I remember we had like one of those cable boxes that you're maybe not supposed to have in the basement of our house. And I remember in high school, I would go downstairs. I knew it would come on it would be on at night on the Showtime channel. They would air it like all throughout the night,
Hmm.
and I would watch it. And I wasn't even watching it like at weekly, because I would just sneak to watch it. So I didn't even exactly know the storylines of what was going on the show. I would just sort of put it on and be like enamored by the fact that it was like gay people doing gay things.
That show was
Um,
so ahead of its time. It's sort
oh
of
yeah.
mind-boggling that even happened, that entire show even aired on television.
On Showtime.
It was like very racy.
The very first episode, I remember there's that scene at the end where the Gail Harold character like pours, I think it's water or something over his body, and then they have sex, and it was like, that was the first episode. And I mean, it was amazing. And I wish we had more of that kind of like, I miss that soapy kind of gay drama, that the sexuality part of it, because to me, as a young kid seeing it, that was what was so influential about the show to me. Like, I had never seen gay people hooking up on TV before. That was the first time. No, you like literally got to see gay sex, and there was nowhere else on TV that you could see even what the process of that was like. Like, you didn't see, no, I wouldn't have even known how intercourse worked as a gay man if it weren't for that show, or also porn. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, that is important to that show.
The music was great. It had an aesthetic. It had a vibe. I was completely obsessed with Brian Kinney. I wanted to be him. I loved the way he dressed. I loved his car. I loved his
confident.
I loved his job. I loved his loft.
Thought he was like the hottest person I'd ever seen. Yeah, I worry now. I'm noticing, and I don't know if you're noticing this too, but it feels like we're entering a time, or we're already in a time, where there's going to be less opportunities for LGBTQ creators. And I notice, I mentioned I have things in development at places, and different scripts I'm trying to get off the ground, or projects trying to get off the ground. And even within the past 6 months, it seems like there's a little bit more reticence.
What do they say? What is the pushback?
I don't know if anyone says anything. I think a lot of the reason is like, we had too much content. And so now they're looking for things that are like unmistakable hits, like every,
did you watch Pose?
Yeah. I watched the first, how many seasons was it? I didn't finish it.
There were 3 seasons.
I don't know if I ever finished it, to be honest with you.
Could Pose be, I mean, I don't know. Everything Ryan Murphy does is pretty gay and out there.
It's just, they all want, it doesn't even make any sense now, because there's so few names. So with all projects, at least from what I've observed and experienced, is like, they want you to do attachments. So they want actor attachments, whether it's unscripted, scripted, whatever. They want, before you're able to go out and look for financing, these production companies will want you to attach a big name to it. But there's very few big names that can get financing anymore. So even if you have some, I don't know, name a A-list actress, it's like, sometimes you can have Sandra Bullock or Julie Roberts or something, and you still can't get it financed these days. And it's like, well, why are we doing attachments if there's no one on that list? I mean, the list is so small.
This exact issue happened. There was a movie that was Joaquin Phoenix. Do you know this story? How he was
the gay movie.
It was
right?
about to start filming, like 3 weeks away. It was being produced by Killer Films, which has produced tons of independent, like they produced Carol, like tons of like gay independent movies, and now they produce like major movies. And he, for whatever reason, pulled out at the last minute, and they're like, the movie's dead. Exactly what you're saying, like the financing.
Yeah, it's like no one wants to take a chance unless it's a surefire thing. But then there's no surefire things. If The Rock could have a flop now, or so, I don't know. Just I'm naming people, but I've had projects with really big names attached, like, and
really
we can't get financing for them, and it's like, well,
wow.
I don't know. It just feels impossible. So I don't know that it's necessarily people saying, oh, we don't want LGBTQ content or something like that. But I think it's like all of these executives who are making the decisions, they're just looking for like the most foolproof hit, like the thing that is not going to lose them their job. And also the thing that's like safe, so that if they are the ones who greenlight it or give it the financing, then if it does fail, they could be like, oh, well, it seemed like such a slam dunk. It was based on IP, and it's starring this big star, and it's this, and this. So it's got all those markers. So then they could save their job, versus if they were to say, oh, I greenlit this thing that was a flop, and everyone's looking at like, well, why would you greenlit that? Then they're going to get fired. And so it's like a whole collection of reasons. But I do worry that it's just going to be these very general stories, and it's going to be harder and harder to tell queer stories.
My favorite chapter in your Christmas book, in The Jolliest Bunch, is you intro it by saying how you originally wrote it for your first book, but you were it felt too vulnerable to include it. And you're very honest and vulnerable. You talk about your struggles with body dysmorphia and eating issues and everything that has to do with that. And you make the point, like, as you're further in your career, you come to have the opportunity to ghostwrite or co-write Bob Harper's latest book, and sort of the irony of that. And so first of all, I just wanted to say that I love that chapter, and like I can identify a lot with that. Like, so many men don't talk about it, so it was very refreshing to hear it coming from a man.
Thank you.
I'm honing in on the Bob Harper part because before he was on The Biggest Loser, he was plucked for The Biggest Loser because he was a star spin instructor at Crunch. Is that how you met him?
No, but I met him at a gym. I used to do CrossFit here in Los Angeles, and we just took classes together, and we became really good friends. And he was looking for someone to do his book, and I was a writer at the time, or I still am. Yeah, he was looking for someone. We were close friends, and he was like, "Oh, do you think maybe you might want to?" And I had never written a book before, but of course there was like a sliver of a door opening, and I was like, "Oh, whatever I got to do." And so I had to, I remember, I think I wrote like sample chapters for the publisher because I had to prove that they would hire me and it wouldn't be a disaster. But I think it's like kind of a good lesson of like, if there's a little sliver of a door opening, sometimes you have to just kind of plow your way through it for the opportunity if you can. But we met at CrossFit. Yeah.
So speaking of that, something that you and I have in common, and I love when you post, and every time you post an Instagram story from Barry's, I will always have a comment like you're like the gams. I'm like, I like the, like, I love my Barry's.
I love the fit group fitness class. I can't help myself. I have my whole adult life. I've gone into these adult fitness clubs.
Tell me what, so I know you go to Barry's. I don't think people know that the boutique fitness craze, particularly the spin craze, all started in LA. There were these independent studios that were run by these people who made stars out of themselves, and a lot of celebrities would work out at these tiny independent studios, and that's how like it got like a cult following. So I'm curious, like, which studios did you go to? And
I've tried everything. I've done ClassPass where it's like you get to pop in and out of different. I've done so many little studios that have popped up here in Los Angeles that are no longer. Barry's is always my favorite. I'm not an Orange Theory fan. When I worked with Bob, I remember him telling me stories about teaching those classes and different celebrities. You'll have to talk to him one day. I remember him telling me stories about teaching different celebrities in the 90s, and it was so fascinating to me. And I think he taught at the Crunch in West Hollywood, which is like star. Such a kind of like, people know the Crunch in West Hollywood. Not so much anymore, but it was like a thing.
When I used to go to LA, I used to sneak in there to work out.
It's like it was a thing. Yeah. I mean, it was in that shopping center.
Yep.
It still is, but yeah, it was just kind of but I've done all of them. Barry's is my favorite though. I think Barry's, you get the hardest workout. I did CrossFit for a long time, which is where Bob and I became friends. But I opened up about that in the book because my weight, sort of my whole life, I've had that issue with body dysmorphia and disordered eating and all of that kind of stuff. And I feel a good handle on it now, but I think it'll always be something that's sort of in the back of my mind that I'm always thinking about, but I haven't had those struggles in a while. But group fitness, whenever I'm kind of consistently, I at least feel like that noise is turned down a little bit when I'm in a consistent class. And so I like someone kind of yelling at me to work out. I need it.
Who are your favorite instructors at Barry's?
Matt Conrad's a friend of mine, and I like going to him. They just opened a Studio City Barry's, and that's where I'm close by to that one. And I'd been having to go to the Hollywood location, which was kind of a nightmare. But I love probably Matt mostly because I like his music. That's what's most important to me is the music. I took Kyle K's class yesterday, and he's really good in like a tough way.
I love him.
I like him for that because like I know if I'm going to his class, like I'm gonna be like exhausted by the end of it and hate him. But yeah.
He's unbelievable. I think everybody needs to actually see a visual of him. Everyone needs to like look up Kyle K. If you just type in Kyle K, Klebacher, I think is his last name. Go look at his Instagram. Like just looking at him is like visually,
They're all like a Matt or a Kyle or like a,
but Kyle in particular, like he's a model. He's very interesting. Like he's super tall and his body and his face, there's a lot going on. Did you ever try SoulCycle?
Oh yeah, I've done SoulCycle for sure. I've done SoulCycle with Bob before in West Hollywood. And I think we talked about Jonathan Bennett. I think I took his class.
He was an instructor.
I don't know if it was it SoulCycle or I took his class
taught
like years
Soul.
ago. A cycle. Okay, yeah, I think it was Larchmont. Yeah, so I've literally done just all of those.
Did you have favorite instructors at SoulCycle?
No, because I never got like fully in that culture of SoulCycle. Like I would go, but I never really attached myself. It was more of like, okay, somebody's going, let's go kind of situation.
Okay.
And Barry's does now spin classes, but then over the pandemic, I did get the Peloton bike, and I really liked the spin in that. But SoulCycle, I don't know if I ever got ingrained in the culture in the same way as I have with like Barry's or CrossFit. I used to do this place called Brick, and it was like so, you get within the there's like these friend groups and high school things. It feels like high school.
But see, SoulCycle, that to me, like I met two of my best friends at SoulCycle. Like my SoulCycle instructor, like I hosted Thanksgiving at my apartment and like she came. Like it was that tight. But at Barry's, I find it to be a much healthier balance. Like I haven't made friends. Well, I mean, a little, but like it didn't have that intense emotional bond. For me, Barry's is very transactional. It's like I'm in and I'm out. I'm not like...
Yeah. You'll say hi if you know people there, but otherwise you're not really necessarily like chatting with people. I always see Matt Rogers there. Like I've seen him a lot lately. We're buddies, and it's always nice to see him and talk a little Housewives. But yeah, for the most part, it's like I'm not meeting people there or I would love to sometimes, but no one does really.
I always used to say this isn't a problem so much in LA, but in New York, like a big problem of the city can be like, I gotta pee, like you're out and like I gotta pee. Yeah. The best place to pee really is like a SoulCycle because they're super clean, but you gotta go midday when there's no classes going on. In and out, it's like your own private apartment. Just want to say that. A little tip for everybody. Danny Pellegrino. What an odd note to end on. Listen, just want to be of service and help people out. I'm so excited that you were able to make this happen.
Thank you. No, I'm so happy to be here. I appreciate you taking the time so much. Thank you.
I mean, are you going to go on tour at all in the new year?
Hopefully maybe sometime next year. I love this. I love doing shows and I miss doing live shows. I just am not a good traveler. Like I'm not good at airports and hotels. I'm a very anxious person. And so I have to figure it out, but hopefully.
Are you going home for Christmas?
I'm going home this weekend, actually. So I just got the screener of the movie Deck the Walls, which everyone can watch November 29th, the day after Thanksgiving on Hallmark Channel 8, 7 Central. Please tune in.
And then it's also going to be on Peacock.
Yeah, it'll be on Peacock for like a few days after it airs. And then it also is re-airing a bunch of times throughout the season on Hallmark. But it'll be on Peacock for like those first few days. But please watch it. It's really cute and sweet and silly and funny.
I loved it. And it has like a whole home goods. There's like that home goods movement.
There's like fun little Easter eggs too. Yeah. I think if people listen to my podcast, they'll catch little things. But it's really, I'm so proud of it. I'm really proud of how sweet and... What was I saying?
So you're going home for Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, so I'm going home this weekend. So I got the screener, so I'm going to watch it with my mom, and we're going to do like a little premiere kind of party with my family.
Danny, you're the best. I can talk to you so much more.
I love you. Thank you so much for having me. Deck the Walls, November 29th. Please watch. Please watch.
It's going to blow Wicked out of the water.
Right. I know.
Deserving, and they deserve.
What are people saying? Glicked, Gladiator, Wicked. What is Dicked? Dicked.
Oh yeah, like Barbenheimer.
Deck the Walls and Wicked is Dicked. Dicked.
Get dicked this Thanksgiving.
Dicked is good. Let's get dicked Black Friday. Just get dicked.
I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess.
Everyone, please follow me, JessXNYC, on Instagram. Go over to the YouTube channel, Hot Takes and Deep Dives. Throw in my name. All of these interviews are available on YouTube to watch, and we'll see you soon.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn ads.com today.